Hello, everyone. Today marks a great day. We've just submitted the book, How to Restore a Castle, Part 1, to Amazon for publication as a paperback. And in celebration, I thought I would give you a preview via video of the content of the book. Now, when I wrote it, the idea was that it was going to outline exactly that, how to restore a castle. And as you'll know, and as you can see with the picture behind me, the castle isn't yet restored. So this is a kind of promissory note. But I also wanted to give our lairds and ladies and anybody else who's interested an idea of what Dunnans is like to live with, to be with, how we discovered it, and how we found ourselves embarked on this extraordinary journey. The book as it stands tells that first bit, and there will be a second part in the autumn and possibly a third just before Christmas. But that's very much dependent upon how much time I have to do that alongside everything else that's going on, including, for example, a second session of the Adventure in Preservation Jammers in September. So there's a lot to get in this year, but I'm hoping that we'll have at least another one or two books before the end of the year. So to an extract. Now, what I've got here is the fifth admonition, because what I've done with the book is I have broken it into sections which give you an idea of the type of actions that you'll need to take if ever you restore a castle yourself. So this is a kind of how-to manual. And what that allows me to do is be kind of slightly random in the choice of how the story has progressed, as well as giving you an idea of the nuts and bolts of how things work. This admonition is called, "But first, you need opportunity." My mother-in-law lived on the Isle of Arran in a wonderful tumble-down ramshackle farmhouse with views of Ailsa Craig and goats. Not views of goats, obviously, but goats present at the house, occasionally in the house, more famously in our friend Adam's car, a transgression he refused to see. He also refused to note the masticated tax disc or the resigned seen-it-all quality of the postmistress's sigh when proffered limp remains and the excuse Dilly ate it. And geese. There were also geese in the corner by the gate, the best house alarm known to man. It's not certain whether a conventional alarm would raise the village, but utterly panicked geese would. Their squawks filling the glen all the way down to Kildonan. Geese would bring McHales, McFadgeons, and Van Bees charging up the hill. Such the power and volume of geese. But geese and the raised agricultural caste are beside the point here, though let them serve as a background, if not in person, then by implication. No, more importantly, the glen, Sue's home, included the venerable Beau, a huge midnight black Newfoundland who occupied a pivotal role in the household and therefore life in general. His was the enthusiastic greeting on arrival, his the buffeting and tail thumping as you brought in the bags, his the anticipatory deep-chested woofing when you pandered to his excitement by thumping his sides, his the silent demands for attention when he leant against your leg as you stood talking to one another, his the call to end late-night kitchen festivities when he'd appear in the doorway to the hall, his duvet in his mouth, and sigh loudly. He'd eyes, peonies lining his jollops, and heave the bedding into fuller view, as if to say, "Come on, you lot, you've had enough. It's time for bed," that single malt notwithstanding. Sue would laugh and usher the old man to his abode under the stairs, where, she said, he'd settle with his slippers and pipe, grumbling all the while. His point would have been made, though, and we'd all troop off to our various nighttime accommodations. And it was Beau who expressed his reluctance to allow Sadie to marry me by lying down on her train before she reached the altar. And it was walking in the hills and glens of Arran with Beau and Sadie that taught me to love Scotland. And it was that newfound love of the landscape, the architecture, the people, that meant we wholeheartedly supported my father and stepmother's move from the Fen in Norfolk to Lismore in the early noughties. And it was to visit Dad and Jill after a stay with Sue that Sadie and I found ourselves travelling north from the port of Addie Ferry up the A886 towards a lunch at the original, homely version of the Loch Fyne Oyster Bar. And it was along that road, the one that wends its way along above the Kyles through Tinnabrook, opposite the Isle of Bute, and down past Ormerdale into the gentle gullet of Glendaruel, that Sadie and I allowed our curiosity its head. If you have ever driven north through Glendaruel, you'll know the road seems to burrow through a tunnel of birch and alder, ash and rowan, Scots pine and sitka, and by doing so provides tantalizing glimpses of river in by fields filled with livestock and white painted farm steadings. And if you are not used to this apparently gentle, apparently bucolic, and apparently timeless rural scene, then I challenge you not to think as we did. Wouldn't it be lovely to live in a glen like this? And it was in that state of gentle, place-inspired euphoria that as the road crested it on its inevitable journey out of the glen, over the Lenach to Loch Fyne and Straker, we were confronted with a large for sale sign on the side of the road. I remember it as being very, very large, black on white, Arial, or possibly Futura, no branding, just those two words on a rectangular sign and post, as if planted by some mischievous, wily coyote, just for us, on the instant, and still vibrating with the force of its impact. Naturally, I slowed, the lift of my foot from the accelerator an implicit question. I think Sadie agreed, said we should, or perhaps could. We had the time, the booking for lunch was in a couple of hours. I think I replied, what harm could it do? What harm, indeed. So there you go. That's the fifth admonition. There are 28 or so in the book, part one. And I'm sure if you enjoyed that, you'll enjoy the rest of it. I hope you buy the book, whether on Kindle or as a paperback from Amazon, and let me know what you think. Certainly, I've enjoyed writing it, and I hope you will enjoy reading it too. Thank you very much.